Okay, so we are now recording. All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this informational session for upcoming requests for construction bids for the Buffalo Sewer Authority primary treatment renovation project at the Bird Island wastewater treatment facility. I've mentioned a few of these items um, uh, before we started the call, but just a reminder, because this is an online meeting, we ask that you continue to keep yourselves muted throughout the call. Please drop any questions you may have during the course of the presentation in the chat box. We may not be able to answer all of the questions during this meeting, but what we will do is if there are responses to questions that we can provide after the meeting, we'll provide a copy of those questions. So dropping the questions in the chat helps us keep track of those. But of course, if there's questions during the Q&A session, please use the raise hand feature, and we'll just have an organized approach to taking those questions. Post-event, we'll share a copy of this presentation, the registration contact list of everyone that signed up and received an invitation to this meeting, and assuming that everything works, a copy of the recording will be posted online. Something that we typically like to do for many of our meetings with the authority and other clients is to have a safety minute before we move forward with the meeting, because safety is so important. So for this safety minute, we'll talk about ladders. Portable ladders are one of the leading causes of occupational fatalities and injuries. So steps, straight, combination, extensions, all the things that the OSHA code mentions. Some of the do's is avoiding positioning the ladders near electrical hazards, continuously inspect the ladder for damage, maintain that 3-point contact of the ladder positioning. Placement of the ladder is incredibly important, especially as it regards to how it's extended. And as the ladder is in use, make sure to keep it locked. All locks are engaged. Some of the don'ts, and I've seen this firsthand while being on project sites, is do not use the top step. Do not stand on the top 3 steps. Get to where you need to get to. Either you're going up somewhere or you're going down, and do not exceed the ladder's maximum load. Safety is incredibly important. It's a high priority for us, the Greeley-Hampton team. It's a high priority for Buffalo Sewer Authority, and those expectations are going to carry over during the course of the construction. And we practice it daily throughout our organization. We found that a high safety standards translate into high efficiency results in the field. 0 incidents are the goal, and so Buffalo Sewer Authority puts safety first, assuring a safe environment for their employees, their customers, clients, and consultants. So that is our mission, and that's something that we will continuously harp on during the course of our projects and fieldwork. Just quickly running through the objectives of this meeting, to provide information on the upcoming request for construction bids, the primary treatment renovation project. We'll review the expectations of the contract requirements, including meaningful DBE and MWBE engagement. This is also an opportunity, which is why we are collecting the registration forms and entries, is to provide networking opportunities with you, interested bidders, and to encourage teaming prior to bid advertisement next month. And this is also an opportunity to center disadvantaged business enterprise firms, just given the large scope of this project, but also that aligns with the goals of the Buffalo Sewer Authority as it relates to contracting equity and supplier diversity. We'll also provide at the end of this presentation a brief overview of some other upcoming Buffalo Sewer Authority construction contracts. So if you haven't done business with Buffalo Sewer Authority yet, we certainly encourage you to consider getting yourselves organized and placing some roots here. There's a lot of work happening in the city of Buffalo and Erie County. Buffalo Bills Stadium, just naming one. And then afterwards, time permitting, we'll have some question and answer questions. We'll do our best to answer some of those here on this call, and those that we'll need to think about and provide more thoughtful responses for, we will follow up with all of you and provide written responses to those answers or to those questions. For those that are not able to attend, we will also include a copy of this presentation and the written responses of the Q&A and the bid documents. So agenda, we'll just do some brief introductions for those that'll be speaking during the formal part of this presentation, talk briefly about the importance of contracting equity, a bit about Buffalo Sewer Authority and the Bird Island Wastewater Treatment Facility. We'll get into the meat of this project background, summary of work, and constraints. And then getting into the contract administration and requirements, some of the expectations of what we expect to see and the bid submissions, getting into the procurement and construction schedule. As I mentioned in the previous slide, closing with future contracting opportunities in addition to the primary treatment, and then closing out with feedback and Q&A session. So for those that don't know me, my name is Walt Walker. On behalf of Greeley & Hanson, the design consultant, I'm the project manager. I'm also joined by Deputy Project Manager Ryan Christopher. He'll speak in a few minutes. And I'm hearing some echo. I ask to just keep yourself on mute, please. Thank you. Also be joined by two representatives from the Buffalo Sewer Authority that'll share a few words later in this presentation. Tim Blake, the Wastewater Treatment Facility Capital Projects Manager, and Rosaline Nogel, as a Principal Sanitary Engineer here at the Buffalo Sewer Authority. So I mentioned this earlier, the presentation and attendee list will be shared with attendees after this meeting. We'll have all the information that you included in that sign-up sheet here in the right column: name, company, email, you're being interested as a prime, sub, or a vendor, whether or not you're a registered DBE in New York State, and trade specialty. That'll all be shared, so that if you do identify as that prime, sub, and vendor, you can reach out to those folks and start to have conversations about considerations for teaming for this opportunity. In addition, this isn't optional, but we wanted to make this available for those that are unfamiliar with Bird Island Wastewater Treatment Facility. We will be providing the option for a site visit the week of January 22nd, and that'll be scheduled at 9 a.m. each day. Advance notice is required for any of those days that you wish to come out on site. So if you are interested in that optional site visit later this month, I ask that you email me directly at the email address that is shown on the screen. All right, so getting into the contracting equity and supplier diversity. This is not just us doing this because it's something that's mandated by federal funding, but equity is at the core of Buffalo Sewer Authority's priorities. And this project and the size of this project is going to not only address some of the environmental justice priorities and the community in the city of Buffalo, but it's an opportunity to create economic opportunity for disadvantaged minority and women, small and local business enterprises to get a piece of this massive water infrastructure investment planned in the city of Buffalo. And so what we're going to be expecting to see is to not only meet the minimum DBE requirements, but we want to see meaningful teaming arrangements. This is an opportunity for mentorship, partnerships established between experienced firms and smaller firms, because commitment to local supplier diversity and disadvantaged business enterprises means more workforce development opportunity, more opportunities for smaller firms to do business with the Buffalo Sewer Authority, and continued economic growth and community benefits within the city of Buffalo. For the primary treatment renovation contract, there will be a DBE utilization goal of 20% of the value of the contract. If you are a DBE, you must be certified in New York State as a DBE. So, for example, if you're a DBE in Pennsylvania and you're not certified in New York State, that does not count. You need to be certified in New York State as a DBE for that utilization goal to count. And while we don't have a specific MWBE goal, to the points that I discussed just a few minutes ago, utilization of Erie County certified MWBE firms is encouraged. And so we will be looking to see how the prime bidder is engaging with MWBE firms, in addition to meeting that 20% DBE commitment. But the 20% DBE will be the governing standard. As part of your bid proposal package, a DBE utilization plan must be included with the package. And we'll talk a bit about that later on in this discussion, but we're going to keep talking about DBE utilization plan and that being part of the bid package. If it's not part of the package, your bid proposal will be considered incomplete. And the prime contractor must utilize the DBE suppliers, subcontractors that are certified on behalf of the New York State Unified Certification Program via the link that we've provided here. We're looking for plans that are reflecting a good faith effort and that are realistic and meaningful in terms of engagement. So a bit about the Buffalo Sewer Authority, and then we'll talk about the project. BSA provides wastewater services to approximately 550,000 people. The authority owns and operates the Bird Island Wastewater Treatment Facility, and the primary treatment system was constructed in 1938, followed by the secondary treatment system that was constructed in the 1980s. This project, the primary treatment project, is part of an approved long-term control plan, no feasible alternative, but we also use interchangeably wet weather capacity project, where the authority committed to renovate the primary treatment system at a 160 MGD throughput with capacity for increased disinfection of flows to the Niagara River when in partial treatment mode. As part of the overall long-term control plan at the treatment plant, this wet weather capacity project, there are other projects that aim to restore the full secondary treatment capacity to 360 MGD on the back end, and then eventually increase that peak wet weather capacity to 400 MGD. So with the primary treatment having been constructed in the 1930s, this truly is a once in a generational upgrade and rehabilitation of the Bird Island primary treatment system. The project design started in April 2021, and we're currently on design to complete the design after regulatory review this month, and targeting for bid advertisement on February 12th. So I talked about some of the projects that are comprised of the NFA and the long-term treatment of the long-term control plan in this wet weather capacity project. It's a 3-phase project that is expected to take approximately 8 years to complete, and it represents the largest investment in clean water infrastructure in Western New York in over 40 years. So those 3 phases: number 1, there's a secondary system rehabilitation, which is considered phase 1. Construction for that is ongoing, focused on the aeration tanks primarily, but restoring capacity to 360 on the back end. This primary treatment project is considered phase 2, and then there's a future project, a secondary system expansion, phase 3, that'll further expand the treatment plant's biological system capacity to handle more flow during wet weather. So phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. Big picture goals through the wet weather capacity project: protecting public health, water quality, and the environment. This long-term control plan is part of an administrative order, so certainly we want to comply with the regulatory compliance requirements to achieve those goals. Still, affordability to ratepayers is critical. So construction funds for this project have been acquired through state and federal funding, a combination of grants, low interest and zero interest loans. But given the age of the facility, this is a tremendous opportunity to modernize the treatment facility and improve efficiency. But at the end of the day, it's all about the community benefits. So the improved water quality for the Niagara River, an added benefit that we're incorporating into this project, since we do have to comply with regulatory requirements, is after hearing the community and feedback from the community, addressing odor control in the primary system. That is an added benefit that we're looking to include in this project. since we're spending tons of construction capital here. Using this as an opportunity for increased community engagement, continuing that conversation with the public on an understanding of water infrastructure and the value of water, and the commitment to economic growth, supplier diversity, and local workforce. So I'm just going to briefly walk you through some of the just the existing conditions and then the ultimate build out after phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 are complete. During normal operating conditions, there's a linear process here. So the primary treatment throughput during normal operating conditions is 160 MGD. That's during dry weather and very minor wet weather conditions. All plant flow is less than or equal to 160 MGD. So it goes through the preliminary treatment, through the headworks, goes through the primary treatment, and then goes through secondary treatment. At that point, all flow receives preliminary, primary, secondary treatment, and disinfection through outfall 002. During peak wet weather conditions, we have what is called partial treatment mode, where some flows are discharged through primary outfall 001. And given the current capacity limitations on the back end, where the secondary treatment capacity can only take in and treat 320 MGD max, the balance of that goes through the primary outfall, where there is some disinfection, but we're looking to, through this project, have increased disinfection in a minimum 5-minute contact time. So in the coming years, after phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 are constructed and operational, what we will ultimately have is a limited throughput through the primary treatment outfall 001 of 160 MGD through a new high rate disinfection pump station and chlorine contact tanks. That's part of this scope. And then ultimately 400 MGD expanded capacity through the secondary treatment process through the existing primary bypass. So walking you through that capital projects timeline for that phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, here's what we're currently at. We're currently approaching bid phase in February 2024, with construction start later this year after we make award to contractor and NTP is issued. Phase 1 secondary system rehabilitation construction is currently ongoing, and then phase 3, the secondary system expansion, will start design later this year with construction start projected for late 2026. Now we'll spend some time getting into the specific details of the primary treatment system project overview and scope. And for that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Ryan Christopher, who's also serving as the Deputy Project Manager. So Ryan, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Walt. Afternoon, everyone. So as Walt said, I'm going to cover the project-specific information and just go into a little bit of detail on everything that this project entails. So just as an overview of the different processes and structures that are going to be renovated, upgraded, and built new. There's 4 primary sedimentation tanks, 160-foot diameter, that will be fully renovated. So the existing equipment will be demolished, removed, concrete will be repaired, and then brand new equipment, all new mechanisms for sludge and scum collection will be installed. New weirs will be installed for all 4 of the primary tanks. The sludge pumping station there in the middle will also be fully renovated. All new pumping, piping valves on the interior. Electrical equipment will all be replaced and brought up to current code. HVAC plumbing will be upgraded and renovated, and then new personnel spaces as well will be constructed within the building. Walt had mentioned the odor control, which will be new. So all 4 of the primary sedimentation tanks will have covers over the effluent troughs, and all that air captured from the 4 primary tanks and some of the junction chambers will be brought back to the 2 new odor control units. The new high rate disinfection system will be built. So this includes a new chlorine contact tank to treat the 160 mgd and provide 5 minutes of contact time, and then a new high rate disinfection building with pumping stations. So there'll be 5 new pumps. There'll be submersible pumps capable of pumping up to 40 mgd each for a firm capacity of 160 mgd, and then associated electrical equipment, plumbing, HVAC, fire suppression will all be located in there, as well as the chemical storage and feed system for the chlorine contact tank. There'll be upgrades to the bypass structures near the primary tanks with all new gates and actuators for the 2 big primary bypass structures, as well as the inlets to each of the 4 primary tanks. And then finally, the outfall 001, we're connecting to that with a new pipe from the pumping station, from the high rate disinfection system, as well as just making some concrete repairs and bringing that up to a state of good repair at the end of the project. So that's the overview, and I'm going to go into some details now on what is to be completed as part of these this upgrade and renovation project. So for the primary sedimentation tanks, as I mentioned, all of the equipment placed. So new sludge and scum collection equipment, new walkways, new energy dissipating inlets. All of it will be brand new. New scum collection, new effluent weirs, and with new covers. On the structural side, there are some concrete, spalling, cracking that will be repaired during the when the tanks are out of service for demolition and renovation. So all the concrete will be repaired then, as well as at the inlet chambers and scum wells. New or upgraded and renovated concrete, electrical, all brand new electrical for the new process equipment, as well as new site lighting, new handrail around all 4 of the primary sedimentation tanks, as well as some upgrades to the davit mounts, and provide some operational flexibility for staff in the future. Scum collection, as I mentioned, within the primary tanks will be brand new. New scum beach will be installed, and then new scum pumps will be installed within the existing wet wells. So within the sludge pumping station, basically everything is being gutted and renovated and upgraded. So masonry and structural repairs will be done. New pumps, there's 6 new sludge pumps with grinders and 2 new drainage pumps will be installed, as well as all new process piping and valving within the pumping station. The plumbing and HVAC will be brought up to current code. And then you can see in the photo on the left there, the current location of the MCC will be relocated into a new electrical room that will be climate controlled and brought up to current electrical code. Within the sludge pumping station, the sludge pumps are the key item that we're upgrading, and the over with upgrading these sludge pumps is to provide better operation and maintenance flexibility for BSA staff, provide a level of automation that they currently don't have with some new monitoring equipment that'll be installed. And then, as I mentioned, 2 new drainage pumps will be installed on the lowest level. For the odor control system, there's 2 new odor control systems. They each will handle 2 of the 4 primary sedimentation tanks, as well as some of the junction chambers that serve So these are, if we go to the next slide, Walt, it's a hybrid type system with a biological trickling filter on the upstream side and a carbon column on the downstream side. We're pulling air from the 4 PSTs as well as multiple junction chambers. The PSTs will have new covers on the effluent troughs to capture all of the air overflowing the weirs into the effluent troughs, which is this is a big improvement for not just the plant, but also the community surrounding. So for the high rate disinfection system, this is all brand new construction that'll have to be constructed. So the overall capacity of the system is 160 MGD. As Walt said, this is only in operation during this partial treatment mode during wet weather. So we will connect in to the existing bypass structures to take that 160 MGD to the chlorine contact tanks, go through treatment, and then pump it and connect into the existing outfall 001 along the Niagara River. So a little bit about the high rate disinfection pump station. So there's 5 40 MGD submersible pumps overall. So the firm capacity is 160 MGD. There'll be a chemical room for chemical storage and feed for the chlorine contact tank with 3 11,000 gallons FRP storage tanks and multiple chemical feed hose pumps. And then associated electrical equipment for all of the new equipment that's going in related to the high rate disinfection, plumbing, HVAC, fire suppression, and controls will all be located in this building. And then the chlorine contact tank, we're providing up to 5 minutes of contact time at the peak flow of 160 MGD. There's 8 passes overall, about 120-foot length per pass and 6-foot width per pass. And then multiple gates as well, and a couple small drainage pumps for after the wet weather event is ended to clear the contact tank. So there's 2 big conduits that will take flow from the existing primary conduits and bypass structure. So this is the influent conduit to the chlorine contact tank. So it's cast in place concrete, 8.5 foot by 8.5 foot. It'll have 1 gate structure near the kind of start of the conduit that'll be normally closed during dry weather conditions and then open during wet weather conditions. This conduit is on piles. A number of piles, both for the conduits and the new structures that are being built. And then on the effluent side, so pumping out of the high rate disinfection building, there'll be a 96-inch effluent conduit. This will be a Hobos type pipe that will span about 500 feet overall from the pumping station to the existing outfall structure, 001. This will also be on piles. It is over the influent conduit for a little stretch, so it'll be built on top of the influent conduit for a stretch there. And then on the next slide, the outfall 001. So this is where the 96-inch effluent pipe from the HRD pump station will connect in. You can see a couple pictures. The bottom picture there is on the facility side within the fence. And then the top picture there on the right side is outside the fence. So this is a multi-use trail, pedestrian bike path for the community. That'll have to be shut down temporarily to access and install the new connection, as well as make the necessary repairs to the concrete and bring that up to a state of good repair. So I went through a lot there, and we, as Walt said in the beginning, we'll have time for questions at the end. But I want to talk a little bit now about the project constraints, site coordination that'll be involved with this project. So the plant will be in operation during construction. So there'll be a lot of coordination that is required with BSA staff in terms of different shutdowns, whether it's some of the bigger shutdowns to make connections or electrical shutdowns, water connections, things like that, that all have to be coordinated with BSA as shutdowns are required. There is when the project does come out to bid, there's a detailed summary of work with constraints on durations and limitations for these different shutdowns that'll be required. Just a couple things to really point out is there will be some shutdowns for installation of gates and temporary bulkheads that'll be required as part of contract B. The replacement of gate WW-17 is really the most critical one. That has to be installed early on in the contract in order to provide flexibility for diverting flow to settled wet well and a secondary treatment. So that is a very high priority early on in the project that has to be done. I mentioned the outfall 001 repair and installation of the 96-inch effluent pipe that will require shutting that trail down temporarily. So that'll just have to be coordinated with the city and the community. Just something that will be critical in terms of community engagement and making sure that community is aware when this shutdown is occurring so that there are no surprises. Bird Island is accessible via 2 bridges from the mainland. All large deliveries have to occur at the north gate entrance, which is via the CN International Railroad Bridge. That is a requirement. There are no exceptions to that. The coordination of those deliveries will have to be coordinated not just with BSA staff, but as we'll get into here in a few slides, there are other projects going on at the plant site at the same time. So all that will have to be coordinated by the contractor with the phase 1 and then in the future phase 3. But BSA does have other projects going on too, smaller projects at the facility that will have to be coordinated with. So key takeaway here is that there will be a lot of coordination required as part of this project. So for those of you familiar with Bird Island, you already probably know that it is a constrained site. So there's not a lot of staging laydown areas that are available, especially with multiple large construction projects that are going to be ongoing at the same time. So just want to point this out. On the right side of the screen are the 4 primary sedimentation tanks and then the location for the new high rate disinfection system. That's the area that, phase 2, this work, this is where we are going to be focused in. We've laid out various staging and laydown areas that will be available to the contractor. But again, the plant needs to be maintained in service at all times. The grit building is shown there on the far right side. The plant staff need access on the north side there to remove grit from that building and take it off site. So that has to be open at all times for BSA staff. So and then On the left side of the screen is the secondary processes. That phase 1 is ongoing currently. When that's done, phase 3 will be starting up. So throughout the duration of this phase 2 primary renovation project, there will be other work going on at that secondary treatment process. So again, a lot of coordination will be required to just make sure that deliveries, storage, laydown, parking, all that is coordinated with BSA and the other contractors that are on site. So a couple just major items we want to point out. The HRD pumping station and the chlorine contact tanks will require some deep excavation and dewatering. Being on an island between 2 bodies of water, there is going to be groundwater that's present. So dewatering will be key. Key connection will be the electrical connection at the existing megastructure to run power to the new HRD system. That's just a major piece of work that we wanted to point out because that will be critical to feeding the new system. And then just at the primary sedimentation tanks, the pumping station, there's just a lot of coordination in terms of sequencing of what can be out of service at once, so that again the plant can be in operation and treating the wastewater that's coming in. I mentioned the gate WW-17 is critical early on in the project. That has to be installed and operational so that flow can be diverted as needed during some of these different shutdowns. The BSA has a DCS system through Ovation. So all the instrumentation and controls will be coordinated through Ovation. They will be a mandatory integrator supplier for the contractor on this project. And then I think everyone is aware of long lead times, especially for some of the larger specialty equipment, the large 40 MGD pumps, the switch gears, MCCs, things like that. Long lead times. So just want to emphasize early coordination, shop drawing, getting those reviewed and approved so that there aren't any delays due to equipment delivery later on in the project. Okay, so getting into a little bit of the contract administration and requirements. So I'm going to start and I'm going to turn it over to Walt, the SRF requirements. So the work is being divided up into 2 contracts. So there's an A and a B. Contract A is focused on the primary sedimentation tanks, the sludge pumping station, and the odor control side of things. And then contract B is focused on the new high rate disinfection system, chlorine contact tanks, the big influent effluent conduits that we talked about. Those will all be included in B, as well as a number of the gates that will have to be replaced within the existing junction chambers. So the bidders will have the opportunity to propose on A or B, or there will be an opportunity to submit on a combined contract C for both A and B. And if the bidder does propose on the combined work to do everything, they will have to provide proposals for A and B. And then the bidder understands that after the contract is awarded, the authority may select the bid alternate, and the proposed prices for the bid alternate may or may not be considered in determining the lowest bid. Just want to make that clear. So in terms of how the project will be bid, for the most part, the work for both contract A and contract B will be included as a lump sum item. So this will include all of the major work with renovations for the primary sedimentation tanks, all the work within the sludge pumping station, the odor control system, as well as some demo work at the existing bypass sodium hypochlorite facility. That includes all equipment, material, labor, everything is included in there. There's a negotiated price for the Ovation equipment with Emerson. That price is in the bid form already, so all bidders have the same price there. And then there will be a number of allowances and unit cost items as well for contract A that will include some allowances for potentially contaminated materials within the sludge pumping station. So there could be, we know that there is lead-based paint and asbestos that will be present. And there'll be allowances for any additional hazardous material that is found during construction. And then there'll be some unit cost items for additional excavation, concrete, rebar, pile length, things like that, that are pretty standard. So those will all be included as unit price items within the bid form for contract A. So contract B, which is the high rate disinfection system, is set up very similar with a lump sum for the majority of the work. That would include all material, labor, and equipment. There's a set negotiated price with Emerson for the Ovation equipment and integration. That'll be in the bid form as well. And then similar to contract A, there'll be a number of unit cost items and allowances included, additional excavation, pile length, concrete, things like that. That'll be included. And I think, Walt, you're taking the next slide, so I'll turn it over to you.
Yep. Thanks, Ryan. So getting into the funding for the primary treatment project, just looking at overall projected construction cost, this is a engineer's opinion of probable construction cost for contract A and B combined of 70 to 80 million, with the breakdowns of contract A and contract B shown here on the screen. We've secured all funding for the project through a combination of state and federal dollars, SRF funding, bipartisan infrastructure law grants, WIA, WQIP, and still even exploring some options through NYSERDA. Funding is administered primarily through New York State DEC and EFC, but EFC terms and conditions will govern. So please get familiar with EFC requirements. The funding terms and conditions will be included in the bid document, so you can get a full understanding of what those expectations are. But compliance for the entirety of the construction contract is critical, so that committed funding for this primary treatment project is not compromised, because if funding is compromised, that compromises Buffalo Sewer Authority from a financial standpoint, and then in turn puts our ratepayers and community in a difficult situation. Mentioned this earlier at the start of the call, because EFC terms and conditions will govern the entirety of this contract, whether it's A or B separately or combined, needs to meet a 20% DBE utilization goal. So as part of that goal, and including the DBE utilization plan in the bid package, the contractor agrees to make documented good faith efforts to utilize at least 20% of the total value of the contract to New York State certified DBEs. And good faith efforts or more than just documenting who you called and reached out to on the phone or via email. There are actually specific multiple points that EFC identifies as qualified good faith efforts. So when we distribute this slide deck, that hyperlink that you see in this first bullet point will provide a link to describing what those good faith efforts look like. The awarded contractor will be required to submit quarterly DBE utilization plans and reports and proof of payments to DBEs throughout the term of the construction contract. So throughout the term of the construction contract, continuing to make those good faith efforts. We want to see how you're using the sub-consultants, where they're being paid. If we see concern that a lot of the DBE utilization is on the back end of the contract, we're going to ask questions. We mentioned this before, we'll continue to hammer this again. The DBE utilization plan must be submitted with the bid package to be considered. So if you haven't seen that DBE utilization plan, and by the way, this is not to be confused with the MWBE utilization plan. Those are two separate items. Again, DBE goals will govern this contract. Here's just a sample of what that'll look like. When the bid for this project is actually advertised, currently February 12th is the target date. We will reach out to all of you directly, just so you're aware that the bid advertisement goes live. The bid advertisement will also be posted on local newspapers and BSA's procurement opportunities page via this link. Plans will be distributed through Avalon Plan Room. So if you aren't already, make sure that you have an account registered with Avalon Plan Room. A few notable items that we're going to be looking for with the bid package, and then I'll ask Rosie to come off mute and just share a bit from her experience. The entire spec book will be required for the bid submission, not just the sheet with the totals. We need the entire spec book for it to be considered a complete bid package. I mentioned the DBE utilization plan and the documented good faith efforts, meeting all requirements of the EFC funding terms and conditions, owner's protective liability insurance, naming Buffalo Sewer Authority and the City of Buffalo as a sole insured, and then just check your math. Just make sure that the total bid amount adds up correctly, because that total bid amount is what Buffalo Sewer Authority will be looking at. Rosie, anything you'd like to add in terms of best practices and observations as primes put together their bid package?
Just being aware that we are looking for local utilization, we are looking for MWBE utilization, but again, we are funding this primarily through EFC, and with that, the disadvantaged business enterprise certification is required for the 20%, or you need to have a good faith effort. And if that good faith effort does not meet EFC's requirements, then they will kick it back. And that will delay the whole contract. And at Buffalo Sewer, we cannot afford to continue to delay contracts. So we are going to be looking very carefully at any requests for waivers to ensure that before we award a bid, it is either you have met that 20% goal, or you have every single document required by EFC in that waiver request, because we need to bring that before EFC, and they have an intensive process that they go through. And not only do they have an intensive process that they go through, if any document is missing or incomplete, then it goes back to the beginning of the back of the line for further analysis. And so it can cause significant project delays. So that's really what I have there. And again, please check your math. Again, going back and forth with that with EFC is also unpleasant. And we will be having as part of this bidding process, we are having an open house with EFC present, so they can help to explain some of what they are looking for, because we're trying to head off as many of these issues early before bidding occurs, with this project to ensure that we meet our regulatory commitment, but more than just meeting our regulatory commitment, that we are meeting our commitments to the community in regard to odor control, in an expedited way, because this has been an ongoing issue that, our primaries, don't smell that great in the summertime. So we're hoping to mitigate some of that issue and address long-term community concerns, as part of this mandated program.
Thank you, Rosie. Okay, continuing on, just contract administration. This contract will be subject to prevailing wage requirements. EFC has informed us that BABA will be waived through this contract, but the contract still must comply with American iron and steel. Communications, communication, just with the duration of this project, importance of safety, the coordination of multiple contracts on site, as Ryan had mentioned earlier, is so important, not just with Buffalo Sewer staff, Tim leading the team, but with Alex, a plant superintendent, Paul, superintendent of mechanical maintenance, and the shift superintendent as well. So daily communications is super critical with Buffalo Sewer staff, and the consultant construction manager prior to the start of the day's work. Every day before the day's activities start, check-ins and communications will be expected. Coordination with BSA security in the north gate of the facility for the delivery of construction equipment, products, and large vehicles will be required. During the course of the contract, bi-weekly progress meetings will occur to talk about projected work for the coming weeks, outstanding submittals, RFIs, field issues, and as it relates to management of submission of submittals, RFIs, requests for deviations, the document management software platform to be used will be Procore. For contractors not familiar with Procore, a training on the Procore project management software and instructions for submittal procedures will be provided to the contracting team after the bid is awarded to that contractor. Tim Blake, who leads the treatment facility capital projects delivery. From your experience, Tim, and the various work happening, what are some of the things that you're going to be looking for from that contractor, both the prime and the subs?
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for that, Walt. Yes, from a BSA perspective, just to reiterate what Walt and Ryan and Rosie were saying, is we do have multiple contracts underway, lots of big projects going on. We have lots of deliveries, and also our day-to-day plant operations. So that means that coordination and communication is key here. So it's not only communication amongst yourselves and with the project team, but we also have to follow the correct protocol so that the correct people know things. For example, if a contractor's out in the field and one of our employees comes up to him and says, "Hey, wouldn't it be nice to include a third building here? Wouldn't that be cool?" And then the contractor starts, maybe going down that path. I know I'm being extreme here, but if someone goes down the path of doing things just based on what someone has said in the field, well, then it causes problems with the project and scope, and it might do things and you're not going to get paid. So proper communication is important. Also, probably more important than anything else is communication when it comes to safety. If there are incidents, they must be reported the correct way through the project, the project manager, and the Buffalo Sewer Authority safety personnel. So that'll all be discussed on a daily basis. Still too, just remember though that that north gate that Ryan spoke of, the deliveries and the entrance over there, that is going to be a very congested area. There's lots of traffic on the island in our periodic bridge closures, so we have to be careful of to communicate what time we're going to start and delivery times and everything like that. So those are the most important things in my mind, is just a proper communication, being aware of other projects going on. And it's, the other projects going on, it's not just local to the secondary system. So this project being on one end of the island and the other projects being on the north side, that's not the way it is. They could be anywhere on this island, anywhere on this facility. So there are people all over the place. There's contractors all over the place. So we're going to have to coordinate all that. So I guess that's about it.
Thank you, Tim. Okay, so moving on to the next steps in terms of schedule. I'm sure folks are very curious about what that bid and procurement schedule looks like. We are currently on target for a bid advertisement to begin or to be on February 12th. As part of the bid phase, there'll be 3 mandatory bid meetings. Now, I mentioned the site visit later this month is optional, which it truly is. But if you're interested in just getting familiar with the facility before the bid advertisement is formally posted, then that's available. But we want to make sure that all serious bidders have fully understood the site conditions, the constraints, and just the actual facility itself as you're putting together that bid. So we would consider these 3 bid meetings, pre-bid meetings, mandatory. The first one will be a virtual information meeting via Teams on February 20th. Very similar to this open house and informational meeting, but we'll also have some additional updates and be specific on some other contract administration items. Meeting number 2, Rosie mentioned this briefly. There'll be a standalone virtual meeting focused just on the EFC funding and compliance. And our partners at EFC have been gracious and are excited to help lead that meeting and walk through with interested bidders on what those expectations are for the funding compliance. So that's important. We need to all parties need to understand that, so that people understand the expectations and that the funding and any duration of the project is not compromised. And then followed after that is a site walkthrough of the project site. A site walkthrough will be available on either February 22nd or the 23rd. You don't have to attend both, but we do request that you attend a site walkthrough at least one of those days. Bid packages will be due on March 28th. That's on a Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern. No exceptions. If it comes at 11:01, won't be accepted. If you don't submit that complete bid book, it will not be accepted. Then after we collectively review the bids, we expect to make a recommendation of bid award by Buffalo Sewer Authority's May 2024 board meeting, with an expected notice to proceed later in 2024, and then working towards substantial completion at the end of 2028. One other thing I wanted to mention before I move on, as it relates to meeting number 3 for the site walkthrough of the project site and the optional site visit for later this month, that week of January 22nd. We talked about safety, and I want to reinforce that. PPE, so steel-toed boots, hard hats, vest, protective eyewear, hearing protection as well. You will be expected to bring PPE. We'll meet at the administration building to do just a site safety orientation. But if you do not have your PPE, you will not be permitted to walk the site. All right, future Buffalo Sewer construction contracts to be advertised. This is just a sample of some of the projects that will be posted for bid advertisement in the coming years. Certainly not inclusive of everything, but Buffalo Sewer is looking at more than $500 million, a capital plan, both inside and outside of the fence over the next 4 to 5 years. There's the phase 3 secondary treatment expansion, which I'll talk about in detail, a bit more detail briefly on the next slide, and then various collection system projects that are part of the long-term control plan of various sizes. So this discussion is not just about the opportunity for the primary project now. It's we do encourage those contractors, if you haven't done business with Buffalo Sewer at all, is to consider placing some roots here for the opportunities, for the many opportunities that are coming in the future. Talked briefly about the phase 3 Bird Island treatment facility upgrades, the secondary system upgrades and expansion. It's a rehabilitation of the secondary settling tanks, as well as the increase of the secondary treatment capacity with the addition of 2 new final settling tanks and the addition and an additional chlorine contact tank. The engineering design start led by AECOM will occur in Q1 of this year, with completion of the design in early 2026, going through the procurement process with a targeted construction start in Q4 of 2026. We talked about phase 1, which is the secondary rehabilitation focused on works in the aeration tanks, which you can see here in the middle of the screen. It's expected that when that project is substantially complete, phase 1, then phase 3 construction will move right into that staging area and will begin basically immediately after phase 1 is complete. So that's going to conclude the formal part of this presentation for the open house. We'll move into feedback and questions shortly. I do see a few coming through the chat. These are some of the core members of the project design team on both the Buffalo Sewer Authority side and the bottom half of the slide deck, along with myself and Ryan. I do want to stress that any questions on the project before the bid is advertised or during the bid phase, all questions must be sent to me. So questions on the project itself during bid phase. If you're interested in attending the optional site visit later this month, I will be the project point of contact. So please do not load the BSA folks inboxes with emails and questions. Any questions you have related to this project should be sent to me. Please continue to stay in touch with the Buffalo Sewer Authority and all those other opportunities through the websites, where you can find more on construction updates, FAQs, board meeting minutes, where contracts were awarded, public participation plan. The PPP for this project has been posted, as well as one for the overall long-term control plan. That community engagement and public partnership is super important and is of priority when we're talking about equity. And then just continue to stay in touch on all things Buffalo Sewer. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, and we will get into any questions. I did see Brad's question. Will each of these be single or separate primes? If a contractor is bidding on A or B, we expect that there will be a prime for A and there will be a prime for B. If a prime decides to submit a combined bid for A and B, then, which is essentially contract C, then there only needs to be one prime, because in a sense, that'll be a single contract.
Walt, this is Mark Kester. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mark. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I see at WBE and MBE, is there going to be disabled veteran requirements as well?
There are similar to the MWBE. There will not be specific ones, I believe. DBE will govern, but you should review the terms and conditions. We'll go back and confirm. But DBE is governed, but we do recommend use of MWBEs and veteran business enterprises.
Very good. Thank you all.
Thanks, Mark, for attending.
Walter, I just have a clarification.
Yes, yes, Paul.
Sure. The point about the large deliveries at the North Bridge, I just wanted to note that there is also a possibility for large deliveries at the canal side dock. Obviously that's a different logistical and cost aspect, but that's another available option.
Thanks, Paul, for mentioning that. Yep, that's a great point. Any other questions from folks on the call? Okay. Rosie or Tim, any closing comments you'd like to add?
I'd just like to say thank you, everybody, for attending. We're looking forward to a great project. It's nice to see such a large community here. And so we appreciate your time and efforts, and we look forward to seeing you soon on a great project.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rosie. So as we mentioned earlier, we will follow up with everyone sharing the slides, the recording, the full registration list of everyone that signed up to attend this meeting, along with the written responses to all the questions that we've received. Through from now until the start of the bid phase. That'll all be part of the bid package documents, especially important for those that were not able to attend this meeting. And those documents will also be posted on the Buffalo Sewer Authority website. All right. So with that, I want to thank everyone for their time, for the questions. We look forward to the continued interest in Buffalo Sewer Authority and the primary project, and looking forward to seeing many of you on site to understand the facility and to work more. You still have an opportunity to reach out to me if you have any questions that you think of after this session. So please don't hesitate to reach out, and then we'll provide responses to the larger community. Thank you all for attending and for your interest, and we look forward to hearing from folks very soon. Thank you and have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks, Walt. You as well, Walt.
Thank you.
Thanks, Walt.